Chair of the ASLO Awards Committee, and it is a great pleasure to present the awards talks for today, but also I get the extra pleasure of being able to present a brand new award for the first time in ASLO history. The awards, I'd also like to underscore before we get going that you now can see online as webcast versions the 2008 awards presentations, which are fascinating and delightful to watch. They're posted on the ASLO website in the awards area, and you can find those, and I encourage you to have a look at them. We offer a wide range of different awards in ASLO. We have not a lot of awards, but they are all very substantially very important to us as a society, and they underscore not only research, but now more and more education. And with that, I'd like to announce the naming of our new Education Award. The Education Award was established just last year, the Excellence in Education Award, and the ASLO Board on Sunday took the decision to name this for a very famous and important ecologist and educator, Ramon Margalef. So I have the pleasure to announce that this will be the first presentation of the Ramon Margalef Excellence in Education Award. With that, I will also leave the stage and hand over the introduction of our first ever Excellence in Education Award awardee to Lettice Lefebvre. Lettice?
Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to commend ASLO for adding this award to the suite of ways it acknowledges its members for their various contributions to the field of limnology and oceanography. Teaching and mentoring are critical components to the future of the discipline and thereby the society, by helping to train a group of knowledgeable, driven, and diverse scientists. One educator who has been a leader in this effort in both formal and informal capacities is Dr. Benjamin Cuker of Hampton University. I met Ben for the first time almost 9 years ago when I was an undergraduate attending my first ASLO meeting in Copenhagen, Denmark. I had been accepted into the ASLO Multicultural program, which is an initiative spearheaded by Ben and largely funded by the National Science Foundation. Since that time, Ben has continued to be a mentor for me as I have progressed in my career. In my relationship with him, Ben's support has ranged from encouraging me to pursue a position as student representative on the ASLO Board of Directors, which I did from 2003 to 2006, and to being a butterfly on my shoulder, as he calls it, to push me to seek more scientific publications after finishing my doctoral degree. He has helped me vet my thoughts about different ways to apply my marine science background, like to education and policy, and has even mentored me in thinking about how to work out work-life balance issues. I could go on about the myriad ways Ben has impacted my life and my career, a relationship that I am glad to say continues to this day. However, it is important to note the many hundreds of students he has influenced in his 20 years at Hampton and 7 years before that at Shaw University, through the courses he has taught, the students he has advised, and the educational programs he has created and directed. These programs include the aforementioned ASLO Multicultural Program, the Multicultural Students at Sea Together program, and the Hall Bonner program, which Ben might tell you more about shortly. I have met, worked with, and in some cases become close friends with many of the people who have been touched by Ben in his many capacities as a teacher and mentor. I have also interacted with many other scientists and educators who have become colleagues, partners, and avid supporters of Ben's visionary programs and teaching methods. There is no doubt that they would attest to his worthiness to receive this Excellence in Education Award, especially in its inaugural year. I'm glad that ASLO also agrees. Ben is an accomplished scientist, a model mentor, and even more, a good person to get to know. And with that, I'd like to ask Carlos to come up and help me present this award to Ben. And as Ben now joins us on stage to receive this award, please join us in congratulating him.
So I have the great pleasure and honor to present Ben Cuker with the Ramon Margalef Award on Education, Excellence in Education. And I read the citation: for his outstanding teaching in the classroom, his exemplary and nationally noted efforts to promote minority participation in aquatic sciences, and for being a gifted mentor. We truly have an outstanding and caring educator to be our first recipient of this important award. Congratulations, Ben.
Thank you so much. And I have a small presentation from the ASLO Multicultural program for both John and Carlos. Letice has hers already.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be sharing this shirt with Wayne Wurtzbaugh, who is actually the chair of the Education Award and was instrumental in creating it.
Thank you, Ben.
Good morning, and thank you for getting up early. Of course, the students in my group didn't have much choice. I posted a wake-up call for everybody. So first, let me thank you. And this award is to me, but it really is not about me. It's about you. It's about the society. It's about the participants. I've been very fortunate to get wonderful support from the program directors, from NSF and NOAA, and as you see listed, other places. But what really, this is a statement about the commitment that the society has made, and it's an affirmation of a direction that you chose. So I want to start off with just a little something here. Anybody who has been associated with the ASLO Multicultural program over the year as a student or as a meeting mentor or otherwise, please just stand up. Okay, well, if you look around, that's about half the folks here. It's not just the students who came today, so thank you so much for that. So, I'm often asked, so what brought you to this interest in diversity? And it was sort of, I was pre-adapted, I suppose. I had the good fortune of going to Mumford High School in Detroit, and that provided me a multicultural or alternative cultural experience. Now, some students in high school may have had gone off to Europe for a year to study or something like that, but I could just stay in the U.S. and the way our society was structured, and still is structured in many ways, was able to enjoy such an experience in my hometown in Detroit. This, of course, is a well-known success story, and obviously a way forward. When ASLO first formed, I guess, 1934 was the beginning of ASLO, is that right? About. Yeah, and all the way up until really into the 1990s, we were really very much about communicating science through the meetings and through the journal, and promoting the sciences. That was pretty much about it. And then, beginning late 80s and then into the 1990s, we really went through a revolution of change. And I was on the Future of ASLO committee after serving on the board in the early 90s. And I think this is where we came up with this mission statement. It may have been modified since, but I think that That's its origin. And in there, you'll see in the very first sentence, or maybe it is one sentence, we want to foster a diverse community of scientists. And of course, this is diverse. The meaning of this is diverse in many ways, as far as disciplines, but also recognizing the contributions of all sorts of different kinds of people. And also, education appears in this mission statement. So, this slide makes 2 points. If I can draw your attention to the first 2 rows. The first row is what the distribution of the U.S. population is by ethnicity currently, or 2005 census. And the second row is the projection for 2050. And you can see very quickly in the first column that we'll move in the U.S. from a majority white society to a majority non-white society. So by 2050, the term minority will be totally antiquated and quite confusing. So the demographic shift, of course, is underway. The subsequent rows indicate the distribution of students going into sciences, and particularly into the ocean sciences. Unfortunately, I know Wayne doesn't like this, but there's no way of breaking out limnology from oceanography. But the indicator, though, is quite strong. So you can see that there's been great progress in terms of percentage of students of color going into the sciences in general in the last 20 or 30 years. But when we take the jump into ocean science or ocean science related careers, aquatic science related careers, there's a substantive drop. And as we move up the ladder to PhDs, the numbers go down much further. So while there's been progress, much work remains to be done. So why diversity? I suppose if I was giving this talk 20 or 30 years ago, we would talk about compensation for past and ongoing wrongs. But we don't even go there anymore. This is not trying to make up for anything, but it's what will be best for the science. When we draw our pool of scientists from the same kinds of people, in the old ways it was, white males, we had a lot of white male thinking, some diversity in there, but certainly not tapping the full diversity of the society that was available. So I certainly believe that diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences lead to diverse perspectives, and this is what keeps our science fresh. And then, of course, the shifting demography, which I made the point of in a couple slides before. If we expect to continue to get the best people into the field, then we have to make sure that we are open to the best people in the field. And the number of white males to do the job is shrinking. So the job simply won't be done, and won't be done as well unless we open up the opportunities. It's also an issue of retaining support. It takes money to run our programs. It takes the support of Congress in the U.S. To run our programs. And if we do not reflect the society which we purport to serve, then we are less likely to get those resources. So why has there been a gap between the distribution of people in the United States and the distribution of people going into the sciences, in particular into the ocean sciences and aquatic sciences? So certainly the legacy of exclusion is there. This is exclusion from educational opportunities, exclusion from careers. And even though that era is long gone, the echo of that remains in the lack of role models, people who have gone before. Simple lack of exposure to the water. If you ask your colleagues what brought you into a career in the aquatic sciences. Many will reflect back to going to the beach as a child with a family, renting a cabin on a lake, and the sort. And literally those opportunities were denied to great masses of people in the U.S. for many years. So certainly just being exposed to the environment is important, and you can see that our new president, who fully embraces science, is fully exposed. I'm supposed to laugh on this one at least. Thank you. Okay. And so lack of role models and pathfinders. It's hard to be the first. Lack of preparation for academic success is also a problem. I didn't show the numbers here, but African Americans, Native Americans, and Hispanics tend to score lower in quantitative abilities coming out of high school on a national basis. So that makes it that much more for them difficult for them to pursue sciences in college. In the more lucrative alternatives, let me tell you, if you have a child who is doing well in the sciences, what mother and father and grandmother and pastor is not going to encourage them to go on for a career in medicine? So many of our wonderful students, I shouldn't say are lost, but are directed to those sorts of opportunities. And there's also a legacy of self-doubt. And this goes, I can go on this, but my hope is that with the election of Barack Obama, we will move away from that era. So what works in building diversity? So this is an abbreviated list. It's important to go to the students, and many students are concentrated in minority-serving institutions. These are historically black colleges and universities. There's a growing number of Native American schools now, 2 and now many more 4-year programs, as well as historically Hispanic-serving ones. So it's easier to get to students there. And making true partnerships with those institutions really helps. I tell you, when I review proposals for NSF, and I see partnerships in the minority-serving institutions are left out of the budget, it always makes me wonder. Mentoring for the long haul. When we do programs, we need to design so that students don't simply get a snapshot, a single exposure, but they're brought through from one stage to the next if we want success. Developing a pool of role models and near-peer mentoring. Those of you who are in education know that an 18-year-old will much more listen to a 19 or 22-year-old than a 54-year-old. So developing those near-peer mentors who reach back. And certainly financial support. None of this is done on the cheap. Celebrate the person as well as the group, establishing group affinities, but make sure that we treat everybody as an individual and celebrate their own decisions in their past and their future. Expect the best. Make sure we set the standards high. We will do a favor to nobody if we expect anything less of than what they can do. Find reasons to say yes. Often we're very busy in about trying to filter out when we have many applicants, and that's how we set up our institutional approach to bringing people in. But we also need to learn how to find the ways to say yes and to overlook certain deficiencies when we find other strengths. And the bottom line is, will the student be successful if they come in the program? Not if their GRE score was 10 or 20 points above or below somebody else's. And to structure these programs so we avoid isolation. It's difficult to bring one African American student and where they're the only one Native American student where they're the only one. It's much easier when the students get to be in groups and not be totally singled out as the individual. I developed these from the three different programs that I've been involved with. The first one is the ASLO Multicultural program, and this is now the 20th anniversary of that program. In the 1980s, I wrote to the various presidents of ASLO suggesting that we do something about diversity, and then finally I got a positive response, and of course that meant that I was in charge of that committee. We all know how those things work. And anyways, the National Science Foundation came up with the funding for the program, the first one which was held at William & Mary 20 years ago. Then there's MAST, Multicultural Students at Sea Together, which is a hands-on, literally an immersion program on a boat. And then the Hall Bonner program for minority doctoral scholars in ocean sciences. So I'm going to talk about each of these a little bit. We always have wonderful T-shirts, as you saw, with our programs, and this is just a few from the last ones. So the ASLO program is built around bringing students to the meetings. We always start with a field trip, and we have sometimes we have workshops to develop skills, how to apply to graduate school, and these sorts of things. There's a student symposium where students get to give their first platform presentation to other students and other members of society, and certainly invited. And by the way, today at 10:30 we're having our student symposium, so if you can, please come by for that. Various workshops during the meetings. There are meeting mentors. The students are assigned a meeting mentor based upon common interest, and these are society members who take the time to go to talks with the students, help them critique the talks, introduce them to people, and this sort of thing. Network building. We build cohesiveness within this group, and then, of course, to try to break into the network of established scientists. Typically, I bring 65 students and maybe a dozen mentors to the meetings. This year in Nice was a tad expensive, if you haven't noticed, so we have 33 students here and 6 mentors. And then part of this is also the newsletter that goes out about twice a month, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but we want to, the whole point is to link students of color with career opportunities and the path for success. So the program has been going long enough that many of the mentors now are products of the program. And for example, Dr. Deidre Gibson, who's now my colleague at Hampton University, and who, by the way, has been nominated for the board of directors. So make sure you get out and vote, and make sure you email 5 people and have them email 5 people, and spread the word on that. When I wrote the original proposal for this, it was talking about going through passive participation, listening, active participation, presenting, and then on up through leadership. And Latisse, of course, came up through leadership. It was our first member of the board elected as a student, and now we have an opportunity to elect a regular member to the board. We have a newsletter, about 500 folks on my list. I send out about twice a month. This was actually established by Sue Weiler, and I ended up taking this over a few years ago, but it keeps everybody in touch with opportunities. The next program I want to mention is MAST. I was fortunate to have received a Pew Fellowship in Marine Conservation in 1999, based upon the ASLO work, and use that to create multicultural students at sea together. So we do marine policy, marine science, the heritage of African Americans and Native Americans under sail in the Chesapeake, and seamanship. We spend a month on a boat doing all this, very intense program, and it ran for 9 years. After the first 3 years of Pew support, we had 6 years of NOAA support. Unfortunately, I'm in between support right now, so if anybody who has the power can certainly send us the money. And then the third program is the Hall Bonner program for minority doctoral scholars in ocean sciences. And this is a collaboration with the Virginia Institute of Marine Science and Old Dominion University. And the point of this is to develop a critical mass of diverse students, to a community of scholarship where there is mutual support. And it involves financial support, various workshops, skill-building workshops as well. And that's National Science Foundation supported. Now, I've summarized some statistics from the 3 different programs here, and you can see when each program started. Note we've had 639 different participants through the ASLO program now, and actually that doesn't include this year's, so it's up some from that. And that's actually over, though, 1,000 different participations, because as I mentioned, one of the best practices is not to simply expose a student, but to help grow them through. So some students have been to as many as 7 or even 8 now of the 20 different programs as they progress through. We've had 107 students go through MAST, and 17 students enter the Hall-Bronner program. We've had a couple had to leave for medical reasons and whatnot, but we've had already, I think, 5 or 6 students have now at least received a master's degree with that. It's also interesting to look at the distribution by ethnicity. When I first started the program in 1990 for ASLO, all the students save one were African American at that very first meeting. I had one Hispanic student. And now you can see we have quite a nice distribution of students representing essentially all the important ethnic groups in the U.S. And by the way, I'm showing the statistics in France and that earlier slide. You know, in France it wouldn't be legal to collect such information. And it's an interesting conundrum here because, you know, the French approach everybody as being French, while the U.S. we understand is important to do statistical compilation and to understand how whether our programs are succeeding or not. So this also creates for a little bit of division on the board as how we approach things as well. So I'd like to just close with, again, thanking everybody, and with that inspiration that, yes, we can. Thank you.